Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Help Is Here podcast, brought to you by the Beyond Compulsion Academy. Today I'm joined by Mary Paulus once again, and we're going to be talking about No Nut November. So welcome back onto the podcast, Mary. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks.
I'm
So no,
dying to know what No Nut November is. I literally have not looked it up.
yeah.
I've been tempted a couple times. I'm like, I'm just going to Google this, but I thought, no, well, it'll be good to have a little suspense.
Any guesses?
Is it guys not using porn for the whole month? Is that the kind of nuts we're talking about here?
Close. So nut. Do you have any idea at all what that is?
Well, I thought nuts maybe was like, nuts like squirrels eat, like hoarding nuts and whatever, I don't know.
Yeah, so basically nutting is like orgasming. So it's like, oh, I just bust a nut. That means like, oh,
Oh.
I've just had an orgasm. So it's about not orgasming for the whole of November. So whether that's masturbation, whether it's sex, no nut November. So no orgasms in November is basically what this is. And obviously, as I'm sure we'll get on to, this is
What's the
massively.
point? What's the point?
What's the point? It's a good question. The point is to become more disciplined, more in control of your sexual desires. That's my guess. I'm sure we'll get on to intermittent reinforcement in this episode.
I'm
So
sure we will.
yeah, at first, like, what's your first impressions on it then, Mary?
Well, it's just more of the same, like the all these challenges, I mean, people are underestimating intermittent reinforcement when it comes to addiction. Like, and the thing is what is the point of not orgasming for a whole month? I mean, just like why I just don't understand the point of it. It's like people go, we had, what did we have? We had screen free September, dry January. It's all the same thing, It's like if you have a problem with with a behavior and you want to stop doing it, why are you just gonna like try to stop doing it for 30 days for a month and then what? I mean, if you've got a problem that you want to stop doing this, I mean, I just don't understand the point of it. Is I guess that's what really confuses me is like other than coming from my perspective, if you do have a problem with the behavior so that you're motivated to stop for a month, then then you're really risking making this behavior worse by intermittently reinforcing it, right? So I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. What are you doing in the meantime? Are you going to go do some healthy behavior? Is it difficult for you to not do this behavior for a month? What is the point? I'm telling you, they're just grossly underestimating intermittent reinforcement. I sound like a broken record, but it's just so true. And it's kind of, if you look at like the obesity epidemic, that's one of the reasons where we're at today is all of these challenges, these diets. They're all like for a certain amount of time, I'm going to go on this diet challenge for 30 days. I'm going to eat a certain way for 30 days, 60 days, whatever. And now look where we are. We have an obesity epidemic that is just beyond the pale. I mean, it's to me, I look around and I see all these people that are just going to get all these horrible medical problems and these kids that are going to get all these horrible medical problems, and we're all just accepting it like it's just like no big deal. Well, and then we can add to the porn epidemic by doing No Nut November, or we can add to alcoholism by having dry January. It's if you have enough negative consequences from a behavior that you want to stop it for 30 days, well, maybe you got a problem. You've got to deal with the bigger picture, not
Yeah.
just stop for 30 days and then teach the addictive part of your mind. Oh, well, they're going to stop for 30 days and then give in.
Yeah.
It's
I
like,
think the
yeah.
reason people do it is because they want to feel back in control temporarily, and they don't believe that they can quit the bad behavior permanently. And so they think, well, if I do No Nut November, then I can see how in control of myself I am, and I can prove to myself that I'm not addicted to this thing. The reality is, for most people who do No Nut November, they don't even complete it anyway. They don't even get to the 30 days or so of November,
Yeah.
and they just end up engaging anyway and, feeling pretty terrible because there they are again, all motivated and excited for 1 month of sobriety, and then they engage. But I think what's really important to get across is what the alternative to all of this is. The alternative to, yeah, screen-free September and sober October, dry January, no nut November, whatever it is. It's like the alternative to all of this is reasonable engagement at reasonable times and being in control of yourself moment by moment permanently, which is absolutely possible. The reason people do all these different challenges is because they don't actually have the belief that they can permanently change their brain. And so they want to try things temporarily because they don't know how empowered they are to make their choices. And so they think, well, if I do it temporarily, that's okay. I don't have to do this forever. But actually, you can be in control of yourself literally forever. But that doesn't mean you deprive yourself temporarily of the thing that you want forever. So, I had someone recently who said, should I do no sugar for 30 days? And I said to him, no, because that's not reasonable at all. Last night I was with my girlfriend and I had a cookie. Okay, I had a cookie. Who cares? I had a cookie. Like, it doesn't really matter, right? It's like getting across this idea that actually having a sustainable approach is all about changing your neural pathways and thinking in a way that can last forever. And that's how you're going to really get in good shape if you want to get in good shape. Get consistent with maybe going to the gym and eating healthily. You're going to do that through reasonable engagement at reasonable times. Now, I think the difference is with porn, this is a behavior, in my opinion, which is never reasonable. You can't choose to look at porn once and think that you're not going to want to look at porn again. Every time you choose to look at porn, you are going to want to look at more porn. And so it's different. Whereas with most
Yeah.
activities, I think reasonable engagement at reasonable times is very fair and makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. Do you think that No Not November is driven by pornography, people using porn, or is there people out there? I mean, it's hard for me to imagine that somebody's like in a good sexually healthy relationship and they just decide, okay, we're just not going to have sex for a month. It seems like it would be driven by people that have a problem using pornography or hookers or whatever, whatever else is available out there for sexual outlets like that, that they would be driven by that. It's not driven by the people that are out there in the world having reasonable sexual interactions with actual people. You know what I mean? Like a
Mm.
partner, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. I think that's is that accurate? That's what drives No Nut November, because I know
Yeah.
that the diets are not driven by people that have a reasonable relationship with food, that aren't obsessing about what they're going to eat all the time. They're not going to be like, okay, well, I'm going to go on this crazy diet for a month. I mean, now people are starting to. It's a little scary because we already have such a large percentage of the population is food obsessed, but like I mean, like I drink very rarely. I would never think, okay, well, now I can't have any alcohol in January because it's going to be a dry January. I would never think of that. It just would not cross my mind. But someone who's drinking a lot out of control might think, oh, yeah, I'm going to not drink all of January, right?
Mm.
Or like the food thing, I would never think, okay, now for a month, I'm going to eat a certain way. No, every moment that I have to deal with food, I'm going to make a choice about what I'm going to eat or not. I'm not going to think twice about it, but I wouldn't think of going on some kind of scheduled stopping. So my, I mean, I would think that this No Nut November is motivated by people that are sexually compulsive, whether it's
Mm.
porn or whatever other outlets they're using, not just your average human who's got a healthy sex life going, okay, now let's go 30 days without orgasms.
Yeah, I guess
Wow.
the only other category of men who could choose to do no nut November would probably be people who maybe they do have like a healthy sex life, but then they've been told about some of the benefits of abstaining from orgasm. So things like increased testosterone, more energy, more confidence, things like that. So maybe there's a population there, but I think the majority are definitely doing this because they have addictive neural pathways and they're in the sort of no-fap group. It's going to be a lot of overlaps with people doing the no-fap
Yeah.
streaks, really. And I
With
think,
a time limit. Yeah.
yeah, and it's just not really going to help because you're not going to change the thought patterns that underlie engaging in a behavior you don't want to engage in. If you want to stop engaging in a behavior, then you need to change the thought patterns. And I think just temporarily stopping the behavior is not really going to do anything. I mean, we've worked with guys recently who have literally gone over a year. I can think of like two clients in particular who we've worked with who have gone well over a year with no porn at all, but it did not change the underlying thought patterns. And so they were still struggling with porn. And one of them described it as being like a dry drunk. And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, you're still going to be in deprivation. You're still going to be feeling irritated. There's going to be this thing that you want that you feel like you can't have all the time. And you're not actually going to experience the peace of mind or the empowerment which comes with changing the thoughts and realizing that you are always in control of yourself moment by moment and doing the work by using a script. So I think changing the goal is so important because it's not just about that result of like,
Yeah.
do I look at porn? Do I not look at porn? It's more about, are you actually fully in control of yourself? Yes or no? And I don't think
Well,
many people can answer yes to that.
the thing is too is like people can think that they're going into one of these no whatevers, for maybe health benefits or increased testosterone, or I'm going to feel healthier about what I eat, or feel better about drinking less or whatever, and maybe they don't really have a compulsive behavior going on at the time, but they get on the train because everyone else is on the social media going, we're going to do the dry January or whatever. So now you're going to create more alcoholics, more porn addicts, more food compulsives. I mean, the obesity epidemic is a perfect example of that, because it's just spiraled completely out of control because a lot of these people, that are obese now went in just thinking, oh, well, I'm going to go on a little 30-day diet thing that's on Facebook or whatever. And then they intermittently reinforce this and they feel that deprivation. I'm just not, now I can't do this because I'm on this challenge or whatever. And now you've created someone who has a compulsive relationship with food. So, I mean, you look at like Weight Watchers, they have created, they're like largely responsible for the obesity epidemic by creating all these feelings of deprivation. Oh, I can't have this and I can't have that. And I have to assign these point values to my food. And once I get to this number of points, then I can't have any more. Had so many people that I've worked with that would save their points and then binge, or they go to their monthly weigh-in and then they would go out after and binge, and it's literally created so many compulsive eaters just by, and they may have gone in there thinking, oh, Weight Watchers isn't that popular, I'd like to lose a few pounds, when maybe people get like a few extra pounds or whatever, maybe, getting older, or maybe like around the holidays or something when everyone's, making Christmas cookies, all that kind of stuff, Thanksgiving, there's times that people reasonably eat more food. And maybe after that, after the holidays, oh, I want to lose a few pounds. Then you go into Weight Watchers or go on some plan. And now you come out with a compulsive relationship with food. And now we're looking at most of the planet is food obsessed. And, so we could do the same thing with porn, just keep up the no nut November.
So Mary, can you explain a bit further for our audience how intermittent reinforcement works and how people can go into Weight Watchers and then they develop these thinking patterns and relationships with food, with, assigning points or whatever it is, and how that actually leads to more addiction.
Well, if you think about it, you go into Weight Watchers, I want to lose a few pounds, right? And so now you've got, they tell you this is what you can eat, this is how much you can eat, and this, and then you have to stop, right? Because I mean, think about it. You've got a point, you've got here, it's I don't know points, calories, I don't know any of that crap. But let's say you get 1,000 Weight Watcher points for a month or something, right? So now you've reached that 1,000, and now here comes the deprivation thinking. I can't have any more. So now you have all these feelings of deprivation. So now you're creating this, okay? Because now you want to eat reasonably, whatever, rather than this weird restricted point system, right? So now you want to just eat reasonably, but now you feel like you can't. And so then you try to hold out because you're on this plan, and you've got to go report back and get weighed in like you're a damn cow or something, cattle, weighing in the cattle, right? So then now you're creating these pathways. Oh my God, I want this and I can't have it because I got to go weigh in. I'm on this plan. I'm accountable to this group, whatever. And so then you're so uncomfortable because you're thinking this way. You got these feelings of deprivation. So now you do it. So there you're creating the neural pathways, right? And then you probably are going to go binge to bust out of it, right? And now you gain more weight, right? So now I've got better go and restrict some more because now I do have more weight I want to lose, and it's just a spiral.
Mm.
And there's real evidence of it with the obesity epidemic, because if you look at some of the graphs over the last 10 years or whatever, when it's gotten really bad, you'll see like the overweight category, like it kind of goes up and down and up and down and up and down. But what's on the severe rise and consistent rise is the obese and the morbid obese, right? So you can see how these people are dieting right here, right? Trying to get the weight off, but then they're like intermittently reinforcing. And now here goes the obesity category, right? Just rising, rising, rising.
Mm.
And, we're looking at over 40%, well, probably 40% already, and I mean, depending where you go in the nation, it's a lot worse, like down south and different places, but
Yeah.
it's just becoming absolutely normalized. But it's interesting. I read your email today about the consequences versus the judgment, right? Or whatever. It's like, okay, we can normalize this obesity, but the people are still paying the consequences. It's like you can normalize it all you want, but it's like having excess weight is very, very, very uncomfortable. I had one of my clients say there was not a moment of respite from the feeling of like, oh my God, all this excess weight, not a moment, she said. So same thing, with other compulsions, intermittent reinforcement. Does that make sense how I
Yeah.
explained that?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. I think it's largely about the restriction because I remember when I first started doing no fap and challenges like No Nut November, because I would definitely do them in the past, and it makes me think how I probably wouldn't have got so addicted to porn and developed those neural pathways if I hadn't have originally tried to do nofap. If I never ever knew about nofap, I highly doubt I would have ended up binging and edging and getting into some categories which I really wasn't proud of and just feeling so, so terrible and low. And I think what happened for me is, yeah, I tried to do the nofap thing and then I ended up getting into this state of deprivation and feeling restricted, feeling like there's this thing I really want to do that I can't do. And it's just like going around in my head, I can't do this thing, I can't do this thing, I can't do this thing.
Yeah.
And then, those feelings get so intense and bad that you end up obviously doing the thing. And then when you do the thing, you're then still sort of going in deprivation a bit. 'Cause you're like, oh, I really should stop. I really should stop. And I remember like when I used to engage with it, I didn't even enjoy engaging. Like it got to a point where I'd be engaging and I just feel so overwhelmed and anxious. And I'd be doing it, but I would be in this like crazy mental state, to be honest. And
Yeah.
would go on for quite a long time, to be honest. And it's just this constant conflict in my head. And I did not know how to get out of that at all. And it was really quite scary. And that's how I fully lost control and got so addicted to porn. Whereas
Mhm.
obviously if I understood what I do now, that would never have happened because I
Yeah.
would understand that actually, yeah, I can go ahead and look at porn. But we get into that a lot more throughout, obviously, like fact one and fact two. And just on that point, actually, if anyone does want to learn more about deprivation thinking, what I'll do on this episode is just leave a link in the description. So we have a really cheap, it's like £40 video, and it's all Mary. It's all Mary's teaching, and it's straight out of our program. It's phase one, fact one and fact two. And I think that will really help people overcome this intermittent reinforcement and understand deprivation thinking. And there's a few
Yeah.
exercises in there as well. So if you
Yeah.
do want to get started learning all of this stuff, then I'll leave a link in the description. Go ahead and watch that content. It really helped me. It's exactly what I learned to overcome this problem.
Well, I feel like all of the guys that we work with have done this no fap of some sort, on these streaks, trying to go for a number of days. And that's really ingrained in their thinking, and it just goes to show how that intermittent reinforcement of just holding out, and not really having a way of dealing with the desire in the moment. I'm just not going to do it. And set 30-day limit or whatever is like, because you can probably distract yourself for 30 days by doing a bunch of other extreme stuff or whatever. But it's really, we know, we have the evidence how it's caused problems for them, then some of them that may not have been, and like yourself, may not have had a full-on porn addiction. Well, now they do, because they've been doing these streaks, and it's all the same as diets or dry January, all that stuff. It's the same thing, just trying to stop doing something without a method for actually changing the neural pathways. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's
yeah,
a thing. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. And I
Mhm.
think a lot of people who get in touch with us, they're not looking at porn every day. Most people who get in touch with us, they're not looking at porn even for that long. Most people looking at porn and they're in this sort of battle in their head and it's impacting them massively on the days they don't look at porn. So even just now, I actually got an email through from somebody who said they're engaging with porn every 4 or 5 days, but they were explaining the consequences for them of engaging. And it was very similar to the consequences I used to live with. And you're right about the consequences are very real, and the consequences are going to exist no matter what. If you choose to engage, you are going to have consequences. And so it's helping people realize in those moments that they actually have the desire that you can do it, but here are the consequences. When you start
Yeah,
to use that,
one of our clients today messaged saying that he's diagnosed with ADHD, and I thought about that. When you're in an addiction and you are in the basic dilemma of you want to do it and you want to stop, right? You think about living in that conflict, how many times a day, I mean, my clients have told me that they're in that dilemma omnipresent. It's I want to do it, I want to stop, I want to do it, I want to stop, I want to do it, I want to stop. Well, living in that constant conflict all the time, and this guy said that's what I've been living for 10 years. I mean, think about how deficient your attention span is going to be, right? If all you can think about is the porn you want to do or the food you want to eat or the, alcohol, whatever it is, the gambling, whatever it is, nicotine, want to do it, you want to stop, you want to do it, you want to stop. That's a full-time job, So when you're trying to focus on something else, well, that's going to be very challenging when your mind is consumed with the dilemma, the basic
yeah,
dilemma of being stuck in an addiction. You want to do it and you want to stop.
exactly.
So, yeah.
And
Yep,
I
yep.
think that's the thing about No Nut November for like your average person who's not already addicted is what I can see happening is they're probably not thinking about porn that often. Because I've got friends who do look at porn and they just do it and then it's over and then they don't think about porn again until they next look at porn. And that might not be that regularly. And their relationship with it is okay. And you know what? I think if you don't
Yeah.
have addictive neural pathways, then all right, maybe
Yeah.
crack on. Personally, I can't see it. Personally, I think most people are addicted, and that if they actually try to quit, they'd really struggle. But then I'd obviously give them help. But anyway, point is,
Well, yeah, go
go
ahead.
on.
Finish your point. Sorry, go
All
ahead.
right. But yeah,
Yeah.
what I was just gonna say is that like what's gonna happen for a lot of people, they're not gonna have the addictive neural pathways. They're gonna try No Nut November, and then it's like their mind's always on, I can't do this thing, I can't do this thing, can't do this thing. Because they're gonna have all this wanting, and then they feel like they can't
Yeah.
do it. So now they're developing these addictive neural pathways. Whereas like for
Yeah.
my friends right now, they've got this thing, they sometimes want to do it, and then they don't think about it again. So it's such a big difference, and that's how it creates these neural pathways, right?
Yeah. Oh, what I was going to say is, yeah, go ahead, go do No Not November, and then we'll see you in the program later.
It's true, to be honest with you.
It
Yeah.
it really is true. I mean, it is grossly underestimated, the intermittent reinforcement of these streaks and these, fitness plans and all that stuff. It's yeah, it just creates obsession, and that's no way to live.
Yeah,
It's no way to
absolutely.
live.
It is
So
no way to live. But help is
yeah,
here. So
help
yeah,
us here. Yoo-hoo.
hopefully we can continue to work with more people and help them overcome and change these addiction neural pathways for good and feel good whilst doing so. So thanks so much for listening. Thanks for joining me again, Mary, as always. And we will
Yeah.
see you in the next podcast. Bye bye.
See ya. Bye.